Hello, I am back for part 3 of this tutorial series on how to make this background. Close that. Sorry. I'll be showing part 1. We showed you how to make this background here. Part 2, we showed you how to make a custom brush and a custom paint dynamics. If you haven't watched part 1 and part 2, I suggest you go and watch it now, because it won't make sense unless you're a genius and you just like, oh, he's done that, yes. Yeah, so now you're going to be actually making the particles, and I suggest using sort of this size, because before I talked about what size, I use about varying from 50 to 100. Yeah, so you'll need to have white selected here, and just click around and just make loads of dots like this. It doesn't really matter where they are, just dot them around places. Alright, there you go. So that's the first layer done. Well, not done yet at all. You have to blur it to make it give it sort of depth of field. So to do that, you go to filter. Oh, make sure you have this selected. You don't want to be blurring that. Won't really make a difference, but you won't. You'll be wasting time. Go to filters, blur, and someone please tell me how to pronounce that. Gaussian? I don't know. Whatever. Just go to that blur option. That option under filters, blur, and thingamajig blur. So, you're blurring it to 40 pixels. That seems quite a lot, but you'll see later. So, blur it, and it looks like that. Please come there, thank you. And then you make a new layer. That layer can be called particle 2, or it doesn't really matter at all, it's just that you remember which one's which. Make sure you have transparency selected, as for all other layers. So in this one, sorry, you need to do pretty much the same thing, but don't skip ahead and do the filter things yet. So you just do the same thing as you did before, dot them around random places. Yes, so that should be sufficient. Alright, now you click on filters, blur, whatever blur, or you can do repeat Gaussian blur, but you don't want to do that because you'll be changing some things. Or you can click reshow, and what that'll do is just reshow the dialogue so you can change things, change some options. So this time you want to blur it 10 pixels. There, so you sort of see it coming along. Now you do pretty much the same thing. I was just confused then. So you do the same thing again, just dot it around. Alright. So now this time, go to filters, reshow Gaussian blur, or you can just go here, and then change this to 1. No, What was I doing? I'm sorry. Oops, I messed up. You need to make a new layer. That's what you need to do. Make sure transparency is selected. And yeah, so now you do the same thing. You dot these around random places. Alright. Yeah, I think that's done. Click on filters, blur, that blur, or you can click on reshow, and now blur it to 1 again. Alright, so that'll make it look kind of smoother, if you know what I mean. Yeah. Right, now you just, this is quite simple. You make a new layer. You can call it whatever you want, but I'm calling it gradient. Okay. So what you'll be doing here is you'll be getting a gradient. Remember the gradient tool. Go to tool options and change this to whatever you want, but I am going to use skyline because I quite like that, and have shape linear and dithering. I won't talk about that again. I'd put opacity to full, but change this to overlay, and what that will do is this. No, I did that wrong. Alright. Don't want this to be overlay, you want this to be overlay. So make sure you have this layer selected and go to overlay. And then you create the gradient here. See? It makes it look cool. Yeah. That's pretty much it. It's not the same as this, but because, well, I don't know, it's kind of different and it's cool. So now you click on here, particle 3. This is your least blurred layer of the particles, and change that mode to grain merge. There you go. And go to particle 2, your middly one, and change this to hard light. So that will make it sort of stand out a bit more. And that's pretty much it for the tutorial. You can mess around with this if you can say that I did it wrong, but I'm not really I don't think I got it wrong. And yeah, so that's pretty much it for this today. Yeah. Oh, one thing. I did this background wrong. Yeah. So this is something you can do. You can click on those eyes to stop viewing it, so you're only editing this layer. So I want to have this. I made this too opaque. I wanted it a bit more translucent. So you go to black and you fill it in with black. That was not meant to happen. Oh yeah. This is what you do. Threshold, turn it all the way up. Alright, so now you do that and it fills it all in black. Turn the threshold back down. And now you go to your gradient tool you select all the way up to the top. Foreground to background, red, green, blue. Shape, radial, and change the background colour to black and the foreground colour to, well, whatever colour you really want. I covered that in part 1. Now this time I did it wrong because I set it to opacity 100. It's meant to be 50. Alright, so there you go. That just makes it look like that and not like what it did before. So now you go to layers, you see this is here. You make a new layer, that'll be called cloud. Okay, fill it with transparency. Now you do the same thing that I did before. You go to filters, render, clouds, difference clouds. Make sure the background on the clouds is white. So fill that in with white. What am I doing, Brendan? Fill that in with white. There you go. So now you go to your cloud tool, which has disappeared, and click, make sure randomize is checked and tileable is checked, and leave everything else the same. Okay, you will have this cloudy effect here. Alright. Doesn't matter. Ignore that, just close it, and I think it's being annoyed because it was meant to go in there but it went in there. So just delete that layer, right click, and have that's what happens. Alright, now this is not meant to be difference, it is meant to be overlay. And then you merge that down, they'll merge it into the background, and then this gradient, you can do that again. So I'm doing it again because you see it's chopped off here a bit. So I have gradient selected and do it like this. If you're using the skyline gradient, just go over the edge a bit like that. No, not like that, like that. There you go. I think I might, yeah. Brendan, stop being dumb. Remember to select what you're doing. Now you do this. Ta-da! You could do that. There you go. So, that has been the tutorial. I hope you enjoyed, because I spent pretty much all night recording this. And yeah, so I hope you've learnt more in Gimp than you knew before. So bye. Sash isn't here.